Hello and welcome to week 13 of Electronic Media Copywriting, J241 Online. I'm your instructor, Michael Betker. Let's get things started. So for week 13, here's the agenda. A couple points of fact here. Just want to make sure you guys are aware, and by now you should be, April 21st is kind of the new drop dead date for our conferences, which essentially now is going to be you guys getting your work done as much as possible and loaded back into the area within Canvas I've selected to get feedback from me. Now that's not going to be graded. It's just going to be a gut check like we would have done had we had our conferences. So those are gone now, obviously, given the COVID crisis. In place of that, obviously, we're going to be doing something more digital. So I want to give you guys a chance to get a little bit of a review of your content before we get to the final presentation. So there's that piece. That's again due April 21st. Now, I've mentioned before, again, the radio ad, and we'll have you paired up with somebody on the production side in class 231, communication class 231, which is really a radio production class. We're working on the details of that now. Expect to see a communication on that latter part of this week, so you know where to send your scripts and who to pair up with. All you have to do is send your finished script to the person you've been paired with, and they're going to produce your script and hopefully give you a workable ad, radio ad that you can then use to fortify your presentations with. And of course, also it's nice to have a finished product as a part of your portfolio beyond this class. From a lecture standpoint, today we're going to talk about two things. Today and this week, how to write an executive summary, which will be pretty quick. And then again, the other piece here is proofreading tips. Obviously, it's important for us to make sure we don't have mistakes in our work. And frankly, proofreading is oftentimes something that can be done professionally as well. So if you're good at catching errors and good at grammar, that kind of thing, being a copy editor or just an editor in general, good editors can make really good money. But we'll talk about that as a function of what we do as writers. And then I tabled this. I was actually going to do this today, but it makes for a long presentation. So next week, you'll see a shorter lecture on presentation best practices where we'll kind of, prepare you guys for the final approach for your presentation. So that'll include, obviously, how to post stuff to your Canvas page. And actually, each person has been paired up in threads, so you guys should see where your groups are. But that's how we're going to do it this time here instead of face-to-face, obviously. So more on that next week, so stay tuned for that. All right, so here's a quick snapshot of our syllabus, week 13 and week 14. So week 13 is this week, obviously, and like I said, we're tabling the presentation on best practices for presentations till next week, so week 14. But today we're going to talk about how to write a peer evaluation, how to do an executive summary, and that'll be it for this week. And copy editing as well. So that's how we'll handle this. Next week, kind of a bigger week. Obviously, April 21st is a Tuesday next week. So what I'd like you to do is publish, drafts as solid as they can be of your work, your radio ad, your TV ad, and even your storyboard into a space where it'll be actually a discussion post of some sort. So I'd like you to have that ready by then. And then I'm going to try to turn around and give you guys feedback on that right away. So within a couple days. So I'll give you quick thoughts, quick direction on stuff. It's not graded, but and if you don't put it in there, you don't put it in there. And you want to throw caution to the wind, that's fine. And just make that do. It's kind of optional. But either way, I want to give you the opportunity to get some feedback to tighten the ship if you need to. So here's how that works. Again, this is from the syllabus. So you'll see this if you open up your syllabus example here, iteration number 4 of the syllabus, I think. But, one of the key things here is to get your radio scripts done as soon as possible and back to the student you're paired with by no later than the 22nd of April. And they're going to spin that around and get that back to you hopefully by the time you present. We present everything in week 16 on May 5th. That's the day actually your things are due. So you don't really present. What you want to do is record that and publish that to the thread that's been provided for you. If you don't know what that is or you don't see that, let me know. But everybody should have their name attached to one of, I believe, 5 threads. 4 or 5. So that's it in a nutshell. Our final exam is still happening on May 12th. You'll have 2 hours to do that. It'll be very similar to what we did on the midterm. So I'll have you write another ad there. So just so you guys know what's going on there. So it won't be any different what we did from the midterm generally. So that shouldn't be a big problem for anybody. You'll have plenty of time to get that done. All right, so that's week 14. All right, let's talk about successful executive summaries, the key to good writing. So why do we need them? Well, first and foremost, it's because we want to kind of remind the clients of the hard work we've done and remind them again of the strategy, because sometimes they set it aside and they don't look at it for a while, and then they come back and think, oh yeah, that's what we were thinking about. That's what I talked about with so-and-so. So that's one piece. The other piece is just to thank the client. So you'll see on the examples I provided, and by the way, these are 2 pages generally, but throughout you are sort of, I don't want to say falling over yourself, but it is a thank you letter almost in a way that also double duties as sort of a reminder of the strategy. So that's kind of how it is. Why do we do this? We want to remind the clients what they asked for us to work on, and of course the summary can serve as a permanent reminder of what their 3 initial needs were. Now that may change over time, but ultimately it's just a benchmark of sorts for them to kind of refer to when they look at the material. It's also a chance to clarify what target audience you wrote the campaign to reach, and hopefully you've done your homework there and you've got a good feel for who they are. Remember, if you and the client don't agree on who the audience is, trouble can ensue. So you got to pin that down. Hopefully by now you guys have a good feel for that. Why an executive summary? We want to explain how the ads were created effectively and effectively meet those needs. And this is especially important for clients who won't use their ads right away, like I mentioned. All right, so let's talk about writing it. Your writing should address the client directly. Don't speak about them in the third person. Write to them directly. It's almost like I said, a business letter or business correspondence of sorts. Let's see. Use headers so that the entire document is easily skimmable. And here are some potential headers. And now, obviously, no need to change this too much, but the examples I provided in Canvas and in your packets emulate this. You have client needs, target audience, campaign theme, radio ad, TV ad, and then conclusion. And throughout, again, like I said, it's a letter format, so you're writing directly to them. And you're going to thank them a few times probably. Writing the executive summary. Explain each ad, what the meaning is, and tell them why it's effective, like you've been doing in class all semester. It's not just because it's funny or because it's clever. It's got to have the strategy, and this is where you have a chance to really put some meaning behind the strategy that you've cooked up for them. So that's always good to do as well. Don't summarize the script. They have the script already, so you don't need to say, and then the mom says this. What you're really doing is just using, you're writing a paper on the ad almost in a way that explains it in a strategic way. Conclusion section. Again, thank them graciously, say thank you. And of course, you'll see again in the examples I provided how they do that. Now, obviously, you can use your own words and put your own spin on things. But again, it's always important to say thank you for their time. They've spent their time unduly. Their busy day is, and obviously it's not as busy as it used to be, but either way, they're taking a time out of their day to work with you on this. So thank them for that. If you'd like, provide an open invitation for them to contact you. So if you have a business card, that's great. Most people don't at this stage. But then make sure when you sign off, I would say put your name and your contact info. Now, I wouldn't put my student email in there, but I'd certainly put an email in that's going to be around for a while. So include your permanent contact information if possible. And we've talked about this before, but obviously for the client, you want to, when we're all done here and all things are done, and hopefully COVID's blown over by then, it'd be nice to hand deliver your work to them. And I'm not going to track that down. Obviously, it's up to you how you do this, but I would like you as much as possible to strike a relationship up that could be long lasting. And in the form of that, obviously, is this 3-ring binder with your cover letter, which is not your cover letter, but really your executive summary, followed by your radio ad, followed by your TV ad, followed by a printed color copy of your storyboard. That's pretty much it. When to write the executive summary, work far enough ahead so that the summary can help you prepare for your presentation. So as you're making these things, you should be thinking about your executive summary and kind of what you're going to say about each thing. Like, for example, what's your target audience? What are you going to say about that? If you don't have that figured out, you should have that figured out for the executive summary and so on and so forth. All right, so that should be straightforward for you guys. Let's talk now about proofreading, okay? And it's funny, the more you copyright and the more you do this kind of work, the more obvious mistakes happen. And whenever I read textbooks, even it's amazing how many times I find typos and spelling errors and things like that. It almost makes it seem like nobody was proofing these things half the time. So you'll get good at that over time as well. So here's some examples here, but the proof is in the reading. So obviously a typo can really be a killer for, particularly not so much when you're writing a radio ad, because a lot of times these things can't be read the way they're seen. But if you're writing stuff for print or for the internet or for a press release or for anything else, a misplaced comma or a misspelling can really spell doom for anything you're writing. So toward that end, I would say even the best writers employ the services of a good proofreader, or copywriter, or copy editor rather. So you can, number one, cultivate your own skills here, and like I said, after a while, you'll start getting pretty good at that. But conversely, it's always good to have somebody who knows how to do this stuff to some degree, playing that role as editor. And I have my wife do it sometimes, and oftentimes anybody who's sitting around who take a fresh look at things. Now, obviously, we get too close to things when we write them, and suddenly these mistakes that would be glaring to somebody else you're completely oblivious to, because you've seen it so many times, you've just looked past it. So I would say, be okay with sharing your work. Even the best writers have others look at their work and refine and retool and improve. So what do copy editors, that's what they're called, the people who do this thing for a living, they look at the following things: sense and style. So even not just grammar, but is it fitting for the piece? And is the language you're choosing, does that fit what the overarching sort of story is? So making suggestions there. Again, clarity and ease of reading. Sometimes, I used to have long sentences that, if I put my work in front of somebody, they often say, you got to break the sentence up, that kind of thing. So you want to make sure a fresh pair of eyes gives you that feedback. They also look at tone of voice and whether or not it's appropriate for the audience. And overlong sentences, like I said, of course, and then repetition and missing words. The other thing, too, is you might use the same word several times in a couple sentences, which really is jarring for the reader or the listener. So that's what copy editors do. They will also check for consistency, for example, numbers written as digits or words. They'll also look for the proper spellings. In most cases here in the States, we're looking for American English spellings. Sometimes we like to use obscure or foreign words in our writing. Perhaps there's a better word, or maybe a word that's more understandable. Obviously grammar, like, simple things like there, and there, and correct choice of where, and where. And then also the last one here is kind of the most interesting one, and the one that can get you in trouble the most is innuendos and double entendres. And maybe you didn't mean to write a sexual innuendo into your script, but folks like me and other people can really catch that and say, did you really mean that? And if so, you should probably consider changing it. What is a proofreader or copy editor? They also look for clunky phrasing, like non-working braking system versus faulty brakes, right? A lot of times it's just too close. Like, again, you're too close to it. And is there a simpler, easier way to say something? So they also query doubtful facts, inconsistencies, and potholes, and check that the article holds together logically from start to finish. So does it tie together? And sometimes you might be missing a whole paragraph, or maybe just section that's just not, you cut too much out maybe, and it just doesn't make sense. So a proofreader will be able to take a fresh look at that and provide you with direction. So very important. Well, here's some examples, right? Receipt, I before E except after C. So that should be RECEIPT. We know that one, right? Toilets are for customers' use only, right? So again, the apostrophe, a lot of times you see those kinds of mistakes. Part-time chefs, cooks required. Must have a good understanding of English. Please apply within. That's the funny thing there. So there should be no apostrophes there in chefs and cooks, as we know. Brubaker Cafe. This one's a spelling error. Best cooked breakfast in Dublin. Guaranteed. So breakfast. Now, I'm not sure if that was a mistake or if they did that on purpose, but maybe it's a topless restaurant place. Who knows? But if not, then there's a mistake there. Please use thongs or gloves provided. It should be tongs, obviously, right? So a spelling error there. And again, that invites all kinds of ridicule and it causes laughter, but it certainly doesn't speak well of the brand or the place. All right, here's a question for you. Should you use a speller or grammar check tool? Yes, I would say it. Things like Grammarly, even the freemium version of that, can be a tremendously helpful tool. Now, I would say don't use it for rote. In other words, don't use it exclusively. Never rely on it ultimately because it doesn't have a brain, right? So it doesn't always know how you're thinking, and it may cause embarrassment if you make a change that it recommends that's just completely wrong. Let's say even beyond that, it can cost you money as well. Like I've used these tools in the past, and I've published stuff, be honest, that I've used tools like this for, and then didn't think twice about it, and then I found that I was later incorrect, and I had to reprint some stuff. So, obviously, it's a cautionary tale there, but you got to be careful and not just rely on this only. All right. Here's another thing too: take care of people's names. On U.S. TV, both Fox News and CNN announced the headline: Obama bin Laden dead. Now, I get it, right? Obama bin Laden versus Osama bin Laden. Very close, one letter away. But that's a traumatic and critical error there. The Telegraph website's headline about the world's largest high-energy particle accelerator told us, quote, Large Hadron Collider breaks energy record. So it should be Hadron. And I don't know if you guys know anything about this, but this is over in Europe. The Hadron Collider is a high-speed particle accelerator that collides particles together, and that's really how they discovered a new electron. But obviously, nonetheless, that simple spelling error there, which is a headline most people read, right away caught wind and caught fire. Not in a good way either. Some other DIY tips. Just like bread or pizza dough, leave your draft for a couple hours and overnight and come back to it before you publish. Can't stress this enough. Now, I still do this once in a while, like it's late at night and I'm recording something or writing something to you guys or to some classes of students, or maybe it's an email that I should probably wait on, and I should take my own advice. But, certainly when I publish, I don't publish until the next day when I've had a fresh night of sleep. And that fresh set of eyes is kind of like having a proofreader almost in a way, because you've had a chance to disconnect and think about something else for a while. When you come back to it, like I've said before in class, suddenly these errors will just spring out at you like a sore thumb. So give yourself some time, cleanse the palate, go do something completely different, and then come back to it, and you'll be amazed at how much better your writing will be if you do that. If you know there's a word you consistently misspell, use the tool in the words editor menu to find and replace. That's simple to do, right? Just, I did this for one of my assignments recently where I had changed something. We usually use a research tool that changed to Simmons, MRI to Simmons, and I had MRI all over the place in the thing. And so what you can do is just type in MRI or whatever word you want to replace, and then it'll automatically in Word find those words. And what you do is just you type the word you want to replace it with, and it'll automatically replace all the words. So it's easy to do, and you weed out all of those old terms, or terms you want to get rid of. So that's one way to do that. Proofread from a hard copy. This is kind of old school, but I'll tell you, this is an absolute fact. If you have a printer, the luxury of a printer in your wherever you're staying, when you think you're done, print it off, and get away from a screen. Go sit on a couch or on your kitchen table, and then get a pen out and read it again, right? And use the pen to flag things. And be surprised at how much better your proofreading and your errors will spring out, and you'll be able to fix those errors much easier. So print out a hard copy. Another thing you can do is proofread backwards. So check spelling and punctuation as the words are then seen outside the context of the sentence itself. So a lot of times we'll read it going from front to back or beginning to end, and we'll skip over stuff because, oh yeah, I know that sounds good. Or in your brain, you're saying it's already good. But if you read it backwards, it kind of forces you to take each sentence in totality. And that's where you'll start seeing these errors. Okay, so reading it backwards is another really good tool or trick you can use to catch mistakes. Here's another important fact, all right? And it's something you do. Now, there's lots to figure out, right? Like, for example, one thing is to-be verbs. We always want to make sure we get rid of those and have more of an active voice in our writing. So what I would do is, let's say you want to check to-be verbs. So go through it once, read it through, and then look just for to-be verbs. Your first pass. Second pass could be grammar. Third pass could be spelling. Fourth pass could be, flow, maybe sentence structure, who knows. But either way, blow these out into separate little buckets and proofread it just looking at that one thing. Because if you're looking at it for everything all at once, you're invariably going to miss some stuff. So Other things here, just make sure if you're, this is more for folks publishing online, but make sure any links you publish that are working, and don't take you somewhere you don't want them to go. Should you use an expert to help you in your writing? Yes, if you have access. Now, I'm kind of your default expert here in this class, but even beyond this, when you get out in the real world, find somebody who can help you with that. But what goes down in print can now make or break your future business, right? Because I've got press releases I wrote 20 years ago that are still out online. So know that once they're out there, especially if it's a press release because it's published by a third party, you have no control over getting rid of that stuff. So it's out there. So you really want to make sure that whatever you write, especially when it comes to press releases and other stuff that's online, that you have done your due diligence there. All right, last one here. Now, obviously, a tattoo is a great example of something you can't undo. Don't let the past make your decisions for today. Now, I'm not sure if this is a real one. It certainly looks like a real tattoo. But obviously, the person who had the tattoo made doesn't know how to spell. So decisions is spelled incorrectly. Your should be Y-O-U-R. And for, F-O-R. So there's three spelling errors within this tattoo. And it's, by the way, a pretty big and offensive tattoo to begin with. So anyway, that's it for this week, guys. So hopefully you have a clear understanding of everything what's going on this week. Now, the big things, let's go back to this again, just as a reminder, going back to the front here. All it's really do is it looks like you're working on your final projects, right? I'm going to be heavy duty into grading this week, catching up on things with what I owe you, and I think I owe you obviously your print ad grading and all that stuff. But you should be hard at work now. You've got my feedback on the preliminary pitch. You know which direction you're taking things. If you have any questions, let me know. But obviously now the next big due date is to get everything in April 21st, if you can. If you are not ready and you want to skip that part of it, you can do that. But I'm offering my free advice to you guys in lieu of missing our conferences. So that'll be how we'll handle that. And then obviously, we get to the final dates here, May 5th, so coming up awfully quick, less than a month away. So working on that, but that's a lot of time to work on your projects. So that's it. Next week, we're going to tackle presentation best practices and a few other things, but that's it for this week. All right. Thanks a lot. Hope you guys are doing well and staying safe. We will talk to you in week 14.